everybody, Gina DeLuca here. Okay, I am doing a straight board today. I have been challenging myself the past couple of rounds in the studio / kitchen, and I would like to have a solid win today. I'm not off to a great start because I forgot to put down my edges before I added the Floetrol to the paint. You know, that would give me better coverage than doing it with the Floetrol, but doing it with the Floetrol is better than not doing it at all. This will at least give you some coverage on your sides, so it is not just a stark white canvas. If the paints are running thin or they don't stick to the edges well. The colors that we are working with today, we have, this is the base coat / background color, and that is a mixture of Liquitex Basics Titanium White with some Payne's Gray and a dab of Phthalo Blue. This really goes a long way. If you're using it to tint another color, I mean, it goes a long way. So use sparingly if you're just trying to change the shade just a bit, which is what I wanted to do, so that it went with the colors that I am using. I have here the Decoart Americana Decor Metallics in charcoal, the Americana Decor Metallics in pearl, and in berry. These paints have been mixed, 1 part paint to 2 parts Floetrol. That mixture is then thinned with my concoction of 90% water, 10% Floetrol. I thin with this because thinning with just water really breaks up those polymer bonds a lot quicker. You'll notice if you do that, if you've just been using water and you switch to the Floetrol water concoction, how much easier it blends into the mix. But it also helps to prevent over thinning, which when you're using these little cups, sometimes 1 extra drop of straight water makes it too thin. So that kind of helps with that. Before we get started, have you seen the Fluid Art inspiration cards? If you have, you can fast forward about a minute, but if you have not, what we have are 52 cards. There are 42 technique cards, and each technique card has an associated video here on YouTube that will tell you the exact paints that were used and the consistency and the recipe and all that stuff. This is the picture of that video. This box here has a tip for this particular technique. And then at the bottom, you have the color palette that was used in that particular painting. There are also 8 bonus color palette cards. Each color palette card has 5 color palettes. You can use some of the colors or all of the colors, mix and match the technique cards with the bonus color palette cards, and you have more combinations than you could paint in a lifetime. And oh, and I also forgot that these 2 boxes go together for the basis of a 2 color palette. So you actually kind of get 2 palettes on each card. These are available at my website, ginadeluca.net, and also at Amazon.com. And if you get them off of Amazon, please do leave feedback. It is really helpful for the sellers on there because they're very tight on those algorithms. The consistency that we're working with is about a 2.5 on my consistency scale. It is making a mound, but it does disappear pretty quickly. When you're using metallics, you don't want to go too thin. I'm going to lay down my base coat. If you go thin, extra thin on metallics, the pigments will separate from the binders and it will basically float on top of your painting, which can be a pretty cool thing to happen if you're working on something like a landscape or a sky. But it's just good to be aware, because if you don't want it, you know how to avoid it. I lay down a base coat so that my paints have something to slide around upon and I don't lose my composition. All right, my base coat is down and I'm gonna put some paint in a cup. I'm going to use a regular cup. It does give a different effect than it does with a measuring cup with a spout. So I'm just gonna have some fun with that. How you load your cup, what kind of cup you use, how you pour it, all of that really can affect the outcome of your composition. Okay, I'm going to start with the berry. Always double check your consistency before you put it in your cup. Sauce may thicken upon standing. Pouring from up high, I want it to sink. I want it to blend. Hoping for some boulder pours. Don't know if I'll get them. I've never used these two particular paints before. I have used the ivory pearl, but not the regular pearl. And I've not used the charcoal either. Hoping that I have enough paint here. Well, this is a bit less paint than what I've been using. That just means we're just gonna have to stretch it more. Technically, it is plenty of paint because I have a base coat down. Just gonna have to give it a good stretch. Okay, let's make a mess, shall we? As it gets closer to the end, I will get closer to the canvas to control that drip as much as possible. And I totally botched that. So here's how, when you have points off for the dismount, here's how you fix it. Take your little skewer, just come in and make it blend in with the rest of it. While I'm here, might as well have a little fun. All right, this technique creates lots of bubbles. Pop the bubbles. And popping these bubbles will also help create some of the cells that you're going to get, because there are air bubbles trapped in all of the paints. And so right now the charcoal is sitting underneath of this berry. And as I'm popping these bubbles, I can see the bubbles coming up through the charcoal, bringing the charcoal paint with it. So it's better to do this now, and then you have the opportunity to stretch them out and make them bigger cells, as opposed to torching it after you tilt, and then you just wind up with those little tiny specks of cells. So being patient is really important when you're doing a straight pour. If I let this sit, more cells will pop up. They're going to pop up in here, and as I stretch it, those cells will get bigger and they will turn into the boulder cells. I could tilt this right now and I would still get plenty of cells. They would just be different cells. They would be the little pop-up cells. Some people call them pearl cells that kind of pop up. They're pretty uniformly shaped, somewhat. But when you wait for them and you stretch them out, that's when you get those cool 3D effects that the boulder cells can give you. And it looks like all of this, all of the ivory and the charcoal are sitting underneath of the berry. So probably when I start stretching, we'll see more of that. Unless the berry is the bully. And as you let this sit, you will see more bubbles popping up. The longer it sits, the more bubbles start popping up. So video number 16 was the first one that I did where I got boulder cells. And what had happened was my torch wasn't working properly, and there were a ton of bubbles because it was a really big painting. And I was trying to get my torch to work, and it was like 5 minutes, 7 minutes or something like that, where it was just sitting there. And when I came back, this whole pour was full of cells, and then when I stretched them out, they turned into the boulder cells. And it was, you know, it just started out as magenta cells, but then as I stretched, just magic happened. So if you want to see the first boulder cell pour, it's number 16. Okay. I feel it's important to, you know, at least once in a while, show you in real time, you know, waiting for it. And the reason that I don't do the tilting on high speed is because I feel it's important that you see how slow I actually tilt, because it is pretty darn slow. And these bubbles will keep popping up in your base coat too, so nail those when you see them. So it looks like it wants to go this way first, and so I shall comply. All right. I should definitely be getting cell action in there, not worried about that. This is looking like a rose in there. We'll see if that still looks like one after it gets stretched. Let's get this party started. Again, tilting very slowly. If you've ever had a canvas that wasn't level, then you know how much the paint can move over time. It may feel like it's an eternity, but it is the best thing for your painting. At least for the straight pours. Bring it back to center. I'm just going to take some of this and just bloop it on the edge. I'll do a better job of that later. Okay. And I will do this opposite corner. Because it looks like it wants to. After a while, it's almost like the paint talks to you. It tells you what direction it wants to go next. And if you are very patient, you can almost make a corner. Always bringing the weight back to center before changing direction. And the weight of your paint is going to be where it's moving the fastest. So if you pay attention to that, you can really get very precise about your tilting. Again, patience is so important in pouring. Okay, coming back to center and going to catch that last corner. Hopefully when I get to catch that last corner, I might be able to get my rose back in the center. We shall see. This is definitely going to be stretched to the max. Okay, and now I'm going to bring the weight back to center a bit. Okay. This charcoal is looking almost like a moss green next to this pink, which I actually find really interesting. Some black shades of black are like pull green, so that's why when I make a gray, I use Payne's gray instead of black, because it's more of a blue gray than a green gray. But with this pink, with this berry color, it looks like a deep mossy green. Sometimes colors just play with each other in a certain way. You can really tame certain colors by what color you put next to it. All right, so I'm gonna let this sit and see what it does. I'll probably get some more pop-up cells around the edges. And yeah, I'm gonna clean up and I'll bring it for a close-up. Back in a few. I don't know if you can see how that looks slightly green. It's actually a very cool color against that berry. My center that I rescued. We've got some cool boulder cell action, some pop-up cells. I am pleased with how this turned out. And that berry might seem like it's a very bold color, but it is softer than it appears, at least on the screen that I'm viewing, because the other colors really tone it down. Let's see if you can see it from a distance. It's not quite as super pink. The bling aspect, of course, is fantastic. Yay to Decoart Americana Decor line. I am now a Decoart affiliate, so do check out the description box for the link to all my affiliates. Decoart, Acrylic, Arteza, and Amazon. And if you use those links, anything that you purchase off of those websites, I will receive a small commission at no additional cost to you. And it is super helpful to me to help me stay stocked up in paint so I can keep bringing you the content. Also in the description box, you will find the link to my PayPal tip jar if you feel so inclined. That also helps me stay stocked up in supplies. And my website, GinaDeLuca.net, where you can find my art and music and the fluid art inspiration cards for sale. And the cards are also on Amazon. This looks so 3D. It's so cool. That's why I love using these metallics, so many metallics in the straight pours, because it really gives a 3D effect. Also in the description box, you will find a link to our Facebook group. Go make some art. Join us there. Post your masterpieces. Ask your questions. Get some inspiration. Lots of fun to be had there. Okay, well, I think that is it for me for today. I hope y'all have a beautiful day. Now go make some art.